I would like to also welcome you, and my name is Boglárka Koller. I'm the head of the European Studies Department at Udovič University, Budapest. And we will have a very interesting panel again, and this is logically following the previous panel, which was about enlargement, because now we are going to discuss what happens after enlargement. So we are going to cover 20 years in the European Union, and we are going to discuss the experiences of those countries who had 2 decades in the European Union. I can also promise you that we have a very rich panel because of the disciplinary background of the speakers. So we have everything here, and we have law, we have economics, and we have political science. And also we have a country diversity as well. So I would like to just introduce the panelists, Merili Arjakas, if I pronounce it very well, Junior Research Fellow, International Centre for Defence and Security from Estonia. We have Lucia Mokrá from Comenius University, who has a background in law, and she's expertise lies there. We have Boštjan Udovič, University of Ljubljana, professor and chair of international relations. And last but not least, I have my fellow national, Eva Palóc, who is CEO at the Kopping-Tark Institute, Hungarian, and also part of the Hungarian Economic Association. So we have a very diverse speaker, both disciplinary and also country-wise, but we, as other chairs did, we also are very curious about your contribution to this panel. So we have many questions to ask in relation to these 2 decades, but how we are going to proceed is that I will ask a very basic question from all of you, and then we have other questions which I will ask. So my basic question is, what has the EU given us, Central and Eastern Europeans, and what have we given to the EU? So what is your opinion about it? Of course, you can elaborate the milestones in your country's post-enlargement experience. So I would like to ask now in this, I would like to ask you first, Merili. So what do you think about this question?
My short answer to your first question, what has the EU given to us, is very shortly everything. Because we learned 2 crucial lessons from our occupation by the Soviet Union and the restoration of our independence in 1991, which is first, Russia will struggle to recognize us as an independent nation and will try to assert control over us again. Because it was only in 1994, 3 years after the restoration of the independence, when Russia finally withdrew the Red Army troops, the Russian army troops from Estonia, from the Baltic states, under a significant external pressure. So it wasn't us, actually, it was the West that managed to send off the Russian army, which meant that second, in order to safeguard our sovereignty, we must ensure that we are never again alone. As the common Estonian metaphor goes, if you are not sitting behind the table, you're part of the menu. The decisions will be made over your head, which means that membership in the EU and in NATO was an absolute existential matter to us. Not just membership, but as close integration as possible. Because I fully believe that if the Baltic countries hadn't been able to fight nail and tooth in the 1990s to become accepted in these organizations, I wouldn't be coming here today as a representative of an independent republic. Estonia is also one of the brightest examples of the EU membership having a major positive impact, starting from, for example, our GDP, which is in 2004 was close to $9,000 per capita, and now is close to $30,000 per capita, which is a 4-fold increase. It's now similar level to Slovenia and Czechia, ahead of Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. What it also means that before EU accession in 2004, Estonia was at the level of 48% of the average of the EU 15 at that time. And by this year, we have almost reached 85% of the average of the EU 27. We are very close to the EU average, over 90%, and we see this as an achievement to be proud of. So if Estonia is going to become a net payer of the EU budget in the near future, if Ukraine accesses, but even before that, perhaps, then this isn't seen as a bad thing in Estonian in the Estonian population, we see it as something to be proud of. In practical terms, it also means that if the difference between Finland and Estonia in the 1990s was fivefold, and the gap seemed so huge, it was completely insurmountable, then now they're only twice as rich as we are. But it's not just GDP. We've seen very good positive developments in other areas as well. We have a very high ranking in global comparative assessments of democracy and the rule of law. So the democracy index of the last year put us to the 27th place in the world, ahead of the many states, including, for example, the old member states of Italy and Belgium. We are 9th in the rule of law index in the World Justice Project and 8th in the World Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. We've also, for example, if I take a look at the matter that's very painful for many Central Eastern European countries, which is emigration after the enlargement in 2004, then Estonia is a case of point that if you become rich enough, then people start returning, because our net migration has been positive since 2015. And it's mostly families of people who left when Estonia joined the EU and have now started to return because they want to raise their children in Estonia. So in very short, to quote the words of our Prime Minister, Estonia knows from its own experience that joining the European Union increases the country's prosperity and stability, which in turn strengthens the security of the whole of Europe. Going to the other question that you presented, which is what the Central Eastern European countries have given to the European Union. Well, if you thought that my first part was already self-congratulatory, was congratulating Estonia too much, then I'm getting worse, because my answer to that question is a good reason to exist. Since the 1990s, the idea of the European Union is to make Europe whole and free, to ensure that there is no war between the member states and liberal democratic values are upheld. By and large, this has been successful in the Central European countries. We are free, we are democratic, we do protect the rule of law. I acknowledge that there are problematic countries and there are problematic areas, but that seems to be the case of all regions except the Nordics. And looking at where we started from, we have come a long, long way. And it's a question of the EU, but also a question for the Central Eastern European countries themselves to make sure that the setbacks that have occurred will not drag the entire region down. But all in all, we are fully established EU member states, and we are not new members anymore. In many countries, but it does create this situation that in many countries, such as in the Baltics and in Poland, we have citizens that overwhelmingly support the membership in the EU, but we have little public debate over the EU affairs. If you look at the turnout of the EP elections, yes, we do have record high numbers, but our turnout is still much lower than it is in many Western European countries. And the Estonian public quite often sees the EU as something far away, that the decisions, it will affect our life, but the decisions are made by somebody else, somebody far, some distant, which is not true. Because in 2018, the research by European Council of Foreign Relations ranked Estonia on the 12th place when they measured the visibility and the influence of the member states, which indicates visibility and reputation of a country well above its position relative to its share of the EU population or GDP, because it's a very, very small country. And thus, Estonia appears to be punching above its weight, like some other member states on top of their rankings, particularly Sweden and Netherlands. And if this research was conducted now or 2 years ago, after the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we will probably see an even higher ranking of Estonia and other Baltic countries, because the impact that the Baltics have had in leading the EU policies when it comes to the war in Ukraine and how we should react to Russian aggression, it historically is completely unprecedented. But there's little recognition of that among the public. Because guess what? If you ask the Estonian citizens, where do they see their country as, these rankings of the member states' influence, Estonian citizens place us in the last place. So it's a question of the CE countries, how to grow our impact in the EU, how to take ownership of the EU affairs, so we wouldn't only be brought up in a negative manner, and how to make sure that our own population starts believing that their voice matters.
Thank you very much. We in Hungary, we envy you because of your position in the rule of law ranking. So I don't know when Hungary is going to be in this position. So you mentioned the two sides of Europeanization. So now you are focusing on this bottom-up approach of Europeanization, how a member state can affect the agenda and the policymaking processes in the European Union. Thank you very much. And now I turn to Lucia, and we are very interested. The same question is, so what has the EU given to your country, and what Slovakia, how affected European processes? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Boglárka. So I'll try to make it short and focused, as you mentioned. Coming from, again, or similarly from the small country, on the first place, I have to mention that what EU give to us is the sense, yeah. So the sense of how it may work. So when the country is democratic, when there are institutions established in a proper way, where there is a dynamics between or dynamic communication between the citizens and institutions, and that there are the values set and respected. Because this was not the history always. We had the same experience as the Baltic states, being more than 40 years under the political governance, which was definitely not democratic, and democracy, free elections, freedom of speech was not common. So as a very young state, established only in 1993, after 10 years, literally 10 years, becoming the member of so prestigious association in that time as the European Union, this really makes sense for Slovakia to found a place in the Europe, but also to find, like the way or the sense for the existence itself, based on the same values and the same respect to these values as the other states in this prestigious club. Secondly, the European Union and our membership give us the economic freedom. We ran very quickly through the way from centralized economy to the market economy, with all the struggles all around, with the public debt, with the need of reconstruction of our economy, refocus from much more agricultural country to diversify the portfolio, to establish, like the environment which is attractive to investors, and to be really the contribution not only to the European Union itself, and not only the receiver of the payments. And I have to say that we similarly did a couple of the surveys on occasion of 20th anniversary, and this outcomes had been quite, great in a way that we had been able also to somehow create it or present it in a way understandable to the general population as a part of the information about the European Union, how the membership of Slovakia to the European Union is reflected in the economic sense. And out of this research, I can just quote the most important outcomes is the Slovakia is saving 11 euro per each person per each year from own financial resources, which means that a family of 4 persons, due to membership in the European Union, would be able to buy new car every 5 years. So can you imagine coming from the situation that usually the car had been on the, just getting if there was approved, built, and so on, through the economic performance of the European Union and Slovakian membership in the European Union, the income of the national budget and also the positive effect means that every 4-member family would be able to buy every 5 years the new car, not used car, not recovered car, but the new car itself. The GDP had been increased of more than 15% in 20 years. Yeah, so that's a huge rate which the small countries of Slovakia, which had been much more agriculture or services oriented than the industry or the production oriented, would not be achieved in 100 years under or after the change itself. And Finally, it's not only the economic, I mean, like the financial issues connected with the net income, but it's also the way how we had been able to sustain through a number of financial crises, being the member of the Eurozone and using the common currency. This could hit us much more substantially in 2014, 15, 2018, if we would not have the European currency, which would be, like the struggle, not only economically, but it would have impact also on the society and the political environment in the Slovakia. So the economic freedom in this sense is one of the most not only valued, but also possible to calculate rather than in accordance or comparing to values itself. The third positive, gain from the membership is our presence in international world. Being the part of the European Union means that in majority of the cases, people know that Slovakia exists. Yeah, we are so small that usually for the big countries or the big continents, it's like I'm traveling to Europe, right? So it's not like I'm traveling to Slovakia or whatever. But in one moment, we did become the place on the map which is recognized as one of the members of the European Union. And it's not only that we are recognized, but also we feel that we are recognized. And this is very important for the Slovak population itself, being under the, historically under the governance of different countries, starting from Austrian monarchy, Austro-Hungarian monarchy, being a part of Czechoslovakia, we never had stand alone. Yeah. So for us, it was, not being only able to found the country independent and sovereign, but also to be recognized and acknowledged. And being acknowledged by the other countries which decided in 2003 that Slovakia fulfilled the conditions and can be the member of this prestigious club means that also the population feel integrated, feel that we we become the member of the club and we belong there. We belong somewhere. We are not alone standing in the world itself. And lastly, of course, it's the issue of security. And I would like to underline both the internal security within the European Union, because that's the issue that we feel secure to travel around the European Union without any struggling, without, waiting in the queue on the borders, being respected within the European Union. So basic approach to human security itself. But also externally, being a member of the European Union, which has the external border of the European Union and has the external border right now with Ukraine, means that we can rely on our partners in protecting this border, in sharing the information, security information, data information, relying that even if we would not have personal capacities, technical capacities, there is the European Union which helped and contributed to training of our officers, giving the access to the information systems, and had been able to support the protection of the external border as it would be the border of the respective countries themselves. And I can go with a list of them, of course, but let's stick with these four, because there is also other colleagues who can build up on that. So I would then go to the second part, like what Slovakia get to the European Union. And because I have Boštjan here, let's start with the confusion between Slovakia and Slovenia on the first place. Which always happens, either with the flag, either with the national anthem, or, number of times I heard in couloirs, in foyers, oh yeah, from Slovakia, Ljubljana is such a nice place. And vice versa. So being a joke, that's one of our funny contributions. So we are not rigid country at all. And secondly, much more seriously, firstly, dedicated population. Also, it's not always the issue, but still we had the support of the European Union not belowing than 50%, which means that, of course, it was at the beginning 64, 67 in the public service, a little bit decreased throughout the number of crises, but again, a scale after the way how the EU performed throughout the pandemic, or at the beginning of the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, and standing for the values itself. So in this way, also it may not look like based on the our official representatives always. But as Andrea said yesterday, Hungary is not always only the government. There are people. Also in Slovakia, we can apply the same. It's not only the position of the government, but there is more than 5.5 million people. More than half of them are in favor of the European Union. So, I mean, like, our contribution is dedicated persons and supporting the EU values, which fortunately have been reflected also in the outcome of our elections last week. But of course, also some kind of a struggle, to balance this positivity. When we had to present a different attitudes to number of questions in the European Union, we not always stick to be so much reliable partner when it comes to important questions like the migration, even the rule of law, or lately protection of the environment, what we have been not able to, transpose more than 11 directives related to environment within 2 years. So this comes, of course, with the political representation. So it means that either we have a very strong leadership, or we have much more like a political imbalance and changing positions. But that's some kind of a notion of the politics itself. And last point, when we get there, I mean, when our Slovak representatives are on some positions, they are very integrated. They have a strong moral compass, and they contribute as much as representing the Slovak Republic. You could see it, for example, with Katarina Maternova, the EU delegate representative in Ukraine right now, or Javorčík, the head of the DG enlargement on neighborhood policy, and the number of other people who are getting there. We do not have many people serving in the EU institutions, but those who are there are, the well-qualified, I would say the creme de la creme of what we can create with our small country at all. So I believe that this can improve, but that's what we can in the moment provide the Union, and we are providing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. It was a very good, comprehensive. You can see from the applause, very good comprehensive summary. What happens in Slovakia, and we will have questions to you as well later. But now I'm asking Boštjan. So what about Slovenia? So how do you feel? I give you the microphone.
Okay, so after 2 so nice presentations, I'm going to be a little bit more critical. Slovakia and Slovenia, the first issue is we are having different embassies that are exchanging diplomatic notes and invitations because they're handed in the wrong embassy. So this is one practice we are having. And the second issue that we are having a connection is also that Miroslav Lajčák is maybe going to give the floor to our ex-president Borut Pahor, so regarding the Kosovo-Serbia issue. So we are really strictly connected between both countries. What the European Union brought to Slovenia, firstly, let's make it Schengen. I'm thinking the most important part of Slovenia, so the perception of Schengen, since we are having the border controls with Austria on 2 main checking points, we don't like it, but however, Austria is breaching the European law regarding this, but however, Schengen is one of the most prominent parts. Slovenia entered Schengen in 21st of December 2007, so 3 years after its accession. The second is about the common market, so the single market, and the Slovenian, even though the Slovenian enterprises are more or less oriented 500 kilometers from Ljubljana, meaning Munich, Vienna, Budapest, Belgrade, that's the circle. However, the single market is important from the Slovenian perspective and the value added. Then the financial stability in euro. So Slovenia was the first country introducing euro on the 1st January 2007. We entered into the in June 2004, so it means 1 month after we started our membership. So this is important, and the last are the European funds. And here I'm going to stop. So there are 4, how to say, important steps that the European Union gave to Slovenia. But from our initial path towards the European Union, we are realizing that there are also some pitfalls or some problems that European Union is having, and Slovenia faced them. The first was that we are having members of the first and second tier. So in 1993, Italy blocked Slovenia for 3 years, not being able to negotiate the accession agreement. So we started the accession agreement. So we signed the accession agreement in 1996. the issue what was some issues that were relevant in 1945. So Italy blocked in the 90s something that were already solved by ex-Yugoslavia, that was already solved at the level of the international treaty, and the European Union did nothing. 15 years later, Slovenia used the same instrument to block Croatia. So again, at the time, Slovenia was the first tier and Croatia the second tier. However, this was solved by the arbitration agreement. And according to this, the perception of Slovenia is that the European Union is not following the rule of law, because they are preaching the rule of law regarding Hungary. In the case of Slovenian-Croatian relations, they are not following the rule of law, the Article 7, the Article 2, and the Article 4. So this is, how to say, a negative perception from the European Union. Nevertheless, the stance regarding the European Union is positive. So more than 85% are going today, if we would have a referendum, vote for the European Union again. It was around 90 in 2003. The second issue, which is problematic, is from the position, is that, how to say, the European Union, from the Slovenian perspective, was always perceived as an, how to say, a final target, not a tool. So that is why, in comparison that I heard, we are not contributing much to the European Union. So we are there. We pronounce ourselves as being a good pupil. We love it. We love to obey something that is coming from Berlin, Vienna, Brussels, maybe not the Netherlands. We are not so sure. But however, we love to follow the instructions. We are not contributing. We are not good in contributing to anything. So this is the second most important issue that should be how to say, improved from the perspective of Slovenia. The third one is that we realize that more or less European Union is a golf club. So you are paying a ticket, you're entering there, you can have some advantages, but however, I don't know, all requirements that you need and the grass that you have to fill and I don't know, whatever, you have to do it at home. So we expect it after 2004, we expect it like something like this, okay? We are entering the European Union, in 10 years we're going to have German salaries, no German salaries there. We are going to have, I don't know, the state of democracy like it is in the Western countries, nothing really happening there. The only thing that really is a good one is that we have somebody to blame. Until 1918, we blamed Vienna. Then we blamed Belgrade. Now, after 2004, we have to blame Brussels. So this is good. So everything that is problematic, our politicians are saying, Brussels is asking us. Brussels wants to have this. So we have to blame somebody. So, and the most problematic part for the Slovenia is after 20 years, we can say that the Europeanization process in the Slovenian, how to say, national administration, judiciary system, whatever it is, it has not permitted the system yet. So you can still have judges in Slovenia saying, I don't know, the lawyer is saying, okay, this is according to the regulation, just say, I don't care about the regulation. In Slovenia, only Slovenian laws are relevant. Okay, it's going to fail on the second instance. However, you know, the attitude is a little bit problematic. And how unimportant are the issues of the European Union at the level of the national or the level of the state is presented symbolically by the, how to say, the schedule of the Committee for European Affairs in the National Assembly, which is having its session Friday at 8 in the morning. And the materials for the European Council, for whatever, are coming Thursday at 6 in the afternoon. So there are 14 hours to have and to decide on something that can be really important. So, you know, this, how to say, it for a typical Slovenian, it is logical to be in the European Union. So we are not going to contribute anything. We are going to obey the instructions that are coming from Brussels. Maybe you don't like some of them, then we can blame Brussels. But however, there are logical parts. So the idea is, and this is the main problem after 20 years, that this is becoming even more and more logical. And nothing is really how strong contribution of a country is lacking there. So we don't send our politicians, people don't want to go to the candidacy for the European Parliament. Because it means in the national perspective, if you are a candidate for the European Parliament, you are out of the national politics, you are out, you are dead. And that is why you are sending more or less people that are, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years before retirement or something, go to Brussels, have a better, I don't know, pension or something like this. So no, about the commissioner, we are always changing the commissioners. So each term is having a new commission. And there's no about, I don't know, the sending people to the, I don't know, to the European institutions. Nobody does really care to go to Brussels, to the commission, I don't know, to be seconded somewhere. So the idea of the secondment in a country is inexistent. So we don't send the experts there. As Lucia said, they are having this and that issues there. But we are having now 2 ambassadors future from the EAS. One is going in Afghanistan, and the other one is going in Africa. So, but now for almost 6-7 years, we did not have neither one. So before it was just one. So, you know, the problem is that we as a country, we are still stuck in the system that we are a country. And our people are there, have to be in Ljubljana, whenever in the country. Brussels, okay, if you have to go there, go there. Also, the formal mandates of the government, not of this, but of all governments, is if you can have a Zoom regarding the working group in Brussels, make a Zoom. Please don't go there because it's too expensive. Because if not, you have to go, get up early on morning, go to Zagreb, take a plane to Brussels, come on Wednesday afternoon. So for one meeting, it needs 3 days. So that is why the instructions are as much as follow the Zoom or WebEx or whatever meetings that you are going to have. So people are not going. So after 20 years, and I'm concluding now at this point, what we contributed to the European Union, we are a nice, good, pupil and unproblematic country, following the instructions of Brussels and Berlin. That's it.
Thank you very much. I can easily link my country to this. We are not this good pupil country in the European Union, so it's very, very easy. However, it's not confusing where Hungary is, and everybody knows the political leaders of Hungary with all these positive and negative consequences. So now I turn to Eva, who is going to elaborate with regard to Hungary on the same question.
Yes, I wanted to start my speech with the same sentence that Hungary is the opposite, not the good pupil, but the bad pupil, the worst pupil in the classroom. I fully agree with the colleagues that the membership in the European Union is very important for all countries, not only from the point of view of economic impacts, financial impacts, financial influence, but also in sense of cultural values, rule of law values, and so on. So there's also principle, not only material, but also principle values. Concerning rule of law, so the rule of law is, how to say, is a little bit challenging in Hungary, but it is debated different times in the European Union. And to the contrary, Slovenia, the Hungarian government not only blaming Brussels, the city, it is always the city, never the European Commission or the European Union, Brussels. Not only blaming Brussels, but also wants to occupy Brussels. That was in a speech some weeks ago of the Prime Minister. After the election on Sunday, it might be not so easy to occupy Brussels, but the intention remained the same, or at least we think so. On this occasion, I would like to highlight a little bit different approach what was used here in the previous speeches, because there is a very neglected aspects of the membership of the Central Eastern European countries in the European Union, and this is the value and the culture of social dialogue, the value of collective bargaining. So the value of involving the employees in the decision making on all level, in firm level, in sectoral level, and also on macroeconomic level. I think that is a cornerstone of the Western European old members of the European Union since the Second World War, and this was and this has been a very important value from the perspective of the balanced economic growth, balance and peaceful economic growth. And if we look at the Central Eastern European countries, we can see that here everybody who is over 40 or 50 years here in the room knows that in the Central Eastern European countries, the membership in the trade union was actually compulsory, but that was only a formal and not a real action. The trade unions were a part of the power, of the state power. After the transition, it has changed. The trade unions was falling apart. Many firms collapsed, and so on. And in the first half of the 2000, the new system of trade unions, employees, representatives started to be rebuilt, and European Union even at that time played an important role. At that time, the pre-accession phase, the FAR project, you may remember the FAR project supported the rebuilding, the trade unions, and at least in Hungary, and especially the sectoral social dialogue, the forums of sectoral social dialogue. However, even now there is a significant difference between the old members and the new members of the European Union from the point of view of social dialogue and the involving of trade unions, employees, representatives in the decision making. This graph behind me is showing that the rate of coverage in collective bargaining in old members in the European Union, in the countries of the European Union, and you can see that typically, not exclusively, but typically, the old member states has a much higher coverage of bargaining, collective bargaining, and on the left side, typically Central European countries can be found. There are exemptions, for example, Ireland, where the collective bargaining rate is relatively low, but the tendency is typically this one, and it doesn't seem to be better in recent years, but there is a new, not very new, but it entered into a new phase, the minimum wage directive, which could be very important not only from the point of view of the to reach the adequate wage minimum. That means that subsistence wage, living wage, and to reach 50%, the minimum wage, 50% of the average wage, and 60% of the median wage, but also, and what is more important, to increase the coverage of collective bargaining, actually to 80%, which is very high. If you look at the graph, so 2/3 of countries doesn't reach this 80%, and will not reach actually. So realistically, we can see that will not reach, but the important to get closer to this 80%, what means that the countries should prepare an action plan, how they will raise the rate of social dialogue and concrete steps, what they will do. And there is again European funding, European support to capacity building of the social partners, employees and employers partners, in order to be able create these forums of social dialogue and dialogue on different interests. So I am actually optimistic, not very optimistic, but modestly optimistic in this scene, because I am convinced that it would be very important in all of the countries to create a more balanced situation in the world of labor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. And I turn to the next round of questions, and then I think we will open the floor for the audience questions. My question is that as we see, before a country gets into the European Union and in the enlargement process, Europeanization has this top-down direction because of the conditionality that many things can be asked from the candidate countries, and they are pupils and they would like to meet these requirements. But as soon as a country gets into the European Union, the direction of Europeanization, step by step, can start to turn this bottom-up way. Of course, it needs time. Poland is not represented here, but if we see Hungary and Poland, we can actually say when it happened, this turn, that from this good pupil Hungary and from the good pupil Poland, Europeanization turned toward this more emancipated voice, representing national interest much more stronger, and then having a kind of idea to become a shaper of policies and the agenda maker of the European Union. It happened at the time of 2006, 7 already. There were signs that these countries are going to have this kind of wish. So how do you see in relation to your countries that some country already, or you elaborated, Boštjan, that you are still not in this phase, but there is a change from this adaptation phase to the European integration to emancipation and represent more this interest. So how do you see this, that your country is ever going to become a shaper of European integration? And if you can name the policy areas where you can imagine that your country is going to be a shaper of integration, and in what respect? So that's my second question. And we don't have to keep the same order. So if you have an idea, or you can start with you if you like. Yes.
I mean, I'm coming from Estonia. There are two things that we are famous for: being Russia's neighbors and our digital governance. So I'd say digitalization is one issue where Estonia has really tried to be a shaper of EU integration and shaper of EU policy. We've tried to make a claim that the standards that we have in Estonia should be the floor, not up a ceiling, that all member states should adhere to or should try for. Unfortunately, in many cases, it has still meant that whatever is decided on the EU level tends to be much lower than the EU Estonian standards. So we've had these cases when we have to do double implementation of the lower EU regulation and then our own higher regulation. And then the other issue that we've seen a very clear policy change in the last 2 years is Russia, because for 18 years, Estonia tried to say that we are not one issue country, that we can talk about other things than Russia. And then in the last 2 years, we have been completely justified with only talking about Russia. So this is a field that where Estonia was for a long time. We really thought that the approach that the Western European states have taken towards Russia and Ukraine isn't strong enough, isn't hawkish enough, isn't accurate risk perception that should be done. And we try to enforce it as little as possible. And now in the last 2 years, Estonian officials have been very present in trying to make sure that the sanctions are as strong as possible, that the support to Ukraine is as maximum as possible, and to also raise the cost of aggression to Ukraine, to Russia. As for example, we are currently leading the the debate over the confiscation of Russian frozen assets and how this can be used to help Ukraine. Estonia was the first country that actually did the legislation in national government. So in Estonia, it's currently legal to use the confiscated Russian assets for Ukraine. And we want to really make sure that a better agreement is also reached on the EU level, because again, the money that's in Estonia is far, far smaller than it is currently frozen in EU, most specifically in Belgium.
Thank you very much. I think we clearly identified some areas. So I just turn to you. So what are the prospects for Slovakia? I haven't mentioned, but I think we have to also mention here that if we look at this differentiated integration model, we are in a different situation if you look at these concentric circles or European onions. So our countries are at a different place on this chart. So what do you think about it? So Slovakia as a shaper of integration, what are the prospects? Is there any strategy what you can just elaborate on?
Yeah, I mean, no special strategy, but Slovakia has had the ambition to be, learning from the positive experience from the enlargement to somehow, then disseminate this experience in the future talks on the enlargement within the enlargement process. So from the beginning, the Slovakia was very much supporting the enlargement, especially of Western Balkan countries. But this was the period between 2003 and 2008, yeah, and then the Kosovo declared independence, and then here we comes with the national threat and the protection of the national interest, being pretty much selfish, thinking okay, if Kosovo declared independence, maybe this can happen with the huge Hungarian population in the south of Slovakia. What about this strong Ruthenian Ukrainian population on the east part of the Slovakia? And we backed up. Yeah, no specific rational reason. This was very imaginary or abstract threat, somehow connected, with the threat from the history, from the occupation, then the Czechoslovakia, the Germany took, but by the decision, by the agreement, the western part of Czechia and so on. So this was really the historical experience, which somehow still is present in the minds of the number of politicians, and we stopped any kind of a specific ambitions being supportive for the Western Balkans in enlargement. And then it comes again, somehow we regain our order, and Slovakia step by step started to support individually, yeah, by the expertise, especially countries in a Western Balkan, then also by a specific position of Miroslav Lajčák and his interest in Bosnia, in Serbia, in Montenegro, and so on. He is currently holding the very strategic position of the special representative for Belgrade-Pristina dialogue. So we can see the position over there. Also, I cannot somehow, guarantee that it will stay if there will be any other, a potential conflict with the national interest, like the Kosovo when it popped up. But I believe that here in the enlargement we can share and we can do our, homework based on the previous experience. We try to do it also in relation to Ukraine. I mean, our former Prime Minister Heger was the one who said on the mission of the European politicians to Ukraine, to Kiev, that we need a special track for the Ukraine enlargement. And then 4 months later, we did started, the negotiations on giving the Ukraine the status even earlier in a very accelerated way and so on. So I believe that this can be the area. Otherwise, we do not have any strategy. I mean, very similarly like Slovenia, we didn't have any plan B. Our plan A was to get and become the member of the European Union. And when we got there, then we just became a little bit confused, where we stand. Yeah, we are small. How much our voice matter? Yeah, we have the commissioner, we have the MPs, we have a voice and a weight in the council, but we really didn't shape or lead any kind of a policy. It's clear the Estonia for the digitalization, number of the countries countries for the security, defense, agriculture. We do not have. Yeah, you can see it also from the way how we propose the commissioner. We propose always the same guy, fine, but we still have the same portfolios. Yeah, so we face for the trade, for the external relations, for energy, and so on. And at the end, we just get which a little bit rest on the table, on the plate, interinstitutional cooperation, which had been literally created in this regard. We don't have any kind of a leadership in these policies. I mean, we try to pose ourselves in the enlargement or neighborhood to build on this, and we can find the positive examples in this regard, but we do not have yet, after 20 years, maybe we need a little bit more time to do our work in this regard. So
Thank you very much. So it's very interesting, of course, because I'm Hungarian, so I know what kind of tries happen all the time here in Hungary. So it's not obviously, and it's not true for Poland and Hungary. But I'm turning to you. So do you see any change in this, like with regard to Slovenia, that you would like to become in certain areas a shaper of integration? Any signs of that?
Yes, the only sign is that comparing to Slovakia, sorry, we were always advocating the expanding of the European Union to the Western Balkans, not matter what, not matter the open issues with Croatia, not matter what happened there. We were, I think, one of the just few countries in the European Union always saying that the Western Balkans should be as soon as possible part of the European Union. We are still advocating this today. So from our position, nothing really happened. I had some months ago a meeting with somebody in Brussels, and he said, yeah, because you would like to have a new Yugoslavia here in the European Union. However, it is important from the position of Slovenia having all those countries there, because it is our perception, it is, how to say, our duty to help them to go there, to go to the European Union, because we were the first one, and that is why we would like to advocate, and we are advocating, and we would like also to help other countries from the Western Balkans. To be frank, we are officially supporting the Eastern neighborhood and the enlargement, but this is by, how to say, by the rational approach, not by heart. So nobody in Slovenia would never, if there would be a referendum asking about Serbia or Ukraine, the decision would be quite clear. So if there will be this or that. About the Europeanization, with Professor Kidding, we prepared a book that is going to be issued about the 20 years in Slovenia in July, and then in hard copy in September. And then it's about Europeanization, a chapter. I would say it's the weakest chapter, not because of the authors, but because there's nothing to say in 20 years, more or less. So the bottom-up approach is the most problematic, because we are taking everything for granted. Maybe it is a little bit also something that I should put on the table. There is a slight differentiation between those three countries that we are having on my right and on my left, and Slovenia, because, you know, as, how to say, socialism or communism in the Soviet era, and the Yugoslavia, Slovenia being quite open already to Austria in the 70s, to Italy. So, you know, there were connections already before. So our perception is that we always belonged to the core Europe. Slovenia, France, and Germany, we together. I'm going to illustrate this with one thing that we still don't know whether it's true or not. Václav Havel in 1993 invited Slovenia to join the V4. And at the time, our Prime Minister, Janez Drnovšek, said, we don't want to be with those countries because we are like France. We never entered. What happened? What was the consequence of this? We were not in the first round of the expanding of NATO. And that is why, to be frank, without a strong propaganda and also a public relations about the positive impact of NATO on security, maybe Slovenia would fail on referendum, because we were not in the first round. So we said, okay, if Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland are going for the first round, we don't want to be in that association. Thank you very much. So this is the main issue why we are not thinking about the Europeanization bottom up, because we are always thinking in our forma mentis that we are part of the whole Europe, so we don't need the Europeanization. Maybe some other countries are needing in the region. However, we Slovenians are not, and this is the major mistake. This is a major mistake, and that is why we are having still problems 20 years after just following the rules that Brussels is putting on the table.
Thank you very much, and I turn to Eva if you have any ideas. about this?
Actually, I do not think that it is a big problem that the small countries have a smaller influence on the European policy than the big ones. That is a natural situation, and not only because of the number of population, but also because of the economic strength. If we look at the European countries, Denmark has also very little influence on the European policy, and does not have a general ambition to do that. Maybe in some questions which are outstandingly important for them, they try to express their interest, but basically the big countries, Germany, France, and now or also Poland, so the bigger countries, forms mainly the European policy, and I think that it's not a big problem. Actually, now I realize that Hungary is the biggest country in this group, you know. So we are the biggest. It's a very unusual situation that I am in a group where Hungary is the biggest with its 9.5 million head of people. I'm not in an easy position, as you may know, because Hungary has so many problems vis-a-vis the connection to the European Union that it took a very long time to list all the problems, and I agree with Boglárka that there is this state that period the accession, the countries try to be a very good people and fulfill all the requirements, and after that, after the accession, this fulfillment was not so important anymore. That is similar like in a marriage. Before the marriage, both partners try to show the best face, and after the marriage, after the wedding, it is not so important anymore. But in Hungary, this is a little bit different, because in Hungary there was a break in 2010 in the policy towards the European Union. So that was not a process that worsening or improving process, slowly worsening or slowly improving process. In 2010 there was a break when the new government came into power, and since then it is on the power, and this government has a completely different approach to the European Union from the beginning, and with the time in these 14 years, it has even worsened. So because this attitude is partly for internal use, for the domestic population, to show that we are so sovereign, we are so strong, we protect our interests. In many times we do not understand what interest. We protest on our interest. Anyway, it might be anything, but we are very strong in protecting our interest, and that has deteriorated the strongly and deeply deteriorated the connection between the European Union, the European Commission, and the Hungarian government, and it led to the situation that you know that Hungary is already the only countries, because Poland already left. Hungary is the only country where, because of the problems in the rule of law and the high corruption, what was not characteristic in Poland, the high corruption a significant part of the EU funding has been suspended or frozen. We do not know exactly what it will be elaborated in the future, but from the time being, more than 6 billion euros of European funding has been suspending. That is a very controversial situation because the Hungarian government can blame Brussels that, you see, they do not give us the money that we deserve, and can influence the population against the European Union. Actually, according to the latest surveys, the Hungarian households, the Hungarian citizens are, compared to this situation, are very strongly for the European Union membership. 77% of the population are very strong or strong for the membership of the European Union. So, but nevertheless, in the election, this policy of the government can influence the vote of the population. So that is a very controversial situation. But the fact that the Hungarian population is in favor of the membership in the European Union, that is a guarantee that we will remain a member of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. And we don't have time for the second one, but I have to make, because I'm Hungarian, I have to make a comment here. So we cannot be like very calm in Hungary and sit back and look at this 24% of support of EU membership, to be honest, because there are other research showing that this support is based on these utilitarian considerations, so having the resources from the European institutions. And there are researches conducted by colleagues from this building which shows that if you take this utilitarian support back, then it can easily fall the support of the population. So we cannot rest assured. It's still very high, and we can see that the Hungarian population is supportive. But we can also see from other research data that the government's anti-EU and anti-Brussels communication affected the perceptions of the European citizens, how they relate to the integration. So we cannot be assured, knowing and seeing what happens, that we don't have the EU funds, they are suspended, there is the highest inflation in Hungary, and there are serious economic problems in this country. So if this trend continues, and don't even mention the status of foreign, so how this high support of integration can be maintained among the Hungarian population. So we cannot rest, and we have to do something. But I'm not going to talk more about the Hungary, but that also, as a footnote, it belongs to the truth. So what you see, if you look around in this one of the nicest capital in Budapest, and you see all these billboards of war and peace, and you can still see the election, then you can really be a little bit worried. So if we can maintain this 70+% of the support, because we have some fears with regard to this. So now I turn to the audience, because of course we don't represent all these countries who joined 20 years ago. So we would appreciate if the country representatives can also give us some inputs to this discussion. Yes?
Thank you very much. Jaap de Zwaan from the Netherlands. A question which has not been touched so far is education. So to what extent the Europeanization of societies has been fully integrated in the national education system? So in other words, is European cooperation, knowledge about the European Union, institutions, policies, whatever, is it part and parcel of the curriculum of even primary schools, secondary schools, and universities? I have my doubts about it, but it has not as yet been touched upon. And I may say that in the run-up to the elections, the European election, I noticed also that in the Netherlands sometimes there is a lack of knowledge, but I think especially for the newcomers, it's absolutely crucial to have Europeanization as a prominent component of your national education system. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. We are taking notes, and let's do the same like methodology to collect questions.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations for the first 20 years in the European Union. I'm Elisa from the European Institute of Romania. I have two questions. The first one starting from the insights that have been shared on the Europeanization process in Slovenia. I would like to ask if European affairs are seen in your country as a matter of internal affairs or foreign affairs. And secondly, given the experience that you have gained so far for 20 years of membership, how is the transfer of expertise towards candidate countries going on? Is it mostly coming on government side with specific projects that are implemented directly towards candidate countries? Is it coming mostly from civil society actors or academia? And if it's about courses, for instance, on European affairs or projects to implement the Act Comunitar and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. I'm from Poland, but I will refrain from asking and sharing the Polish perspective. I have a question for the group about the cooperation. It is pretty obvious that when you are small or medium size, you need a coalition to put your preference towards the EU level. And what in your view did we learn about each other in the region of so-called, not anymore, new member states? How do you see the patterns of cooperation? Do you think there is still something in common in that group that pretty much, celebrates the 20 years anniversary of membership, or we really are not anymore a kind of group that shares the things? What your thoughts on this are? Thank you.
Thank you. And there are other, yeah, please. Okay, no, Anita.
My name is Anita Pelle, and I'm from Hungary. And I would like to bring in yet another topic, and that is the euro. Because especially when you said that for Slovenia, it was always looking at the core and belonging to the core. For me, this is like an explanation for why Slovenia rushed so early into the Eurozone. And I'm interested in how you evaluate this kind of early urge into the monetary union before the crisis, because literature suggests that it might have not been the best idea. I'm interested in your opinion, and also the others if they have anything to say in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have seen other.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I was really appreciating, Eva, that you brought the table the important issue of the coverage of bargaining, the social dialogue, the issue of social dialogue, because it is indeed one of the cornerstones of the European social model. But we could see from your figure that still there is a kind of a divide. You very nicely highlighted that on this figure. And I remember that before the accession, I actually was involved in some research on capacity building of social dialogue in the becoming member states. And as far as I know, even in the organization you are in contact with my former workplace, Eurofound, there is now a research going on again on the capacity building of social dialogue. But you said actually that you are modestly optimistic about the future of social dialogue in the Central and Eastern European member states. What could you please elaborate a bit on that? Because seeing, as I said, the graph, I am not so optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have seen two, yes, there and there. And then,
yes,
okay,
thank you.
then we will stop because, okay, no, you can ask and then.
Yeah, so Scolander from the Netherlands, Klingendaal. I have a question for the Hungarian colleagues. Do you think that the EU is using the rule of law instrumentarium in the right way, or is there something else they can do than suspending budgets? Because of course, what you said, it's having impact on Hungary, Poland also previously. So is there something else the EU can do on this issue? Thank you.
Okay. And there was another last, or two questions here, or three. I'm sorry. Good luck. But we started a little bit later this panel.
Okay, I have one question. I'm from Croatia, and we had many benefits of our membership in the European Union in the last 10 years, but we also have one situation which is not so beneficial, and that's the fact that in the last 10 years we lost about 10% of our population. That's because of the demographic situation, but also because so many people have emigrated to the old member states. And so now we have a situation with employers not having enough people who they could employ. Traditionally, we would employ people from the Western Balkans, but now these people are also went to Western Europe. So we are importing people from the Philippines, from the non-European countries. And it's very difficult to integrate them into labor market. It's all sorts of questions. So I think for all of these countries, the new member states, they have a similar problem, And on top of the situation where these countries were even before less densely populated than Western Europe. So, you have this situation where, is this sustainable? What to do about these trends which are terrible? And also, when you look at the dynamics between urban and rural areas, for example, in Croatia, we have this constant situation where population is concentrating and being more and more concentrated in urban areas, and the rural areas are just empty. And this is not good strategically. This is not good economically. This is not good for development. I think I wanted to underline that question. Thank you.
There is at the backs, and then we will have only like half minute on each panel.
My question will only take 2 seconds. I would like to ask my questions to Lucia on the issue of alliances and regional cooperation. What was the impact of the Visegrad 4, and what is the future of the Visegrad 4? What role will they play, keeping in mind the differences between the countries? Thank you.
Okay, I think we can organize another panel. Now, next panel is about Visegrad. So I asked just to reflect, and we can continue in the break to have the discussions, because these are big and broad things like budgetary conditionality and those kind of. Thank you. It's a very legitimate question. So please start and just 1 minute to respond to these, or choose your favorite, and then we can have two.
So very quickly, education, I would say yes, in Estonia we do have Europeanization and knowledge about EU institutions in school curriculums, but I had to go to university to start making a difference between the Council of Europe and the European Council and the Council of the EU and all those things. Then transfer of competences, I'd say in Estonia's case that's a government through civil society non-profits. So they try to have both parts. For example, the e-governance academy is very active in Ukraine right now, but also these e-governments and cybersecurity is a topic that we cooperate with the Western Balkan countries. And then there was a question about immigration. Then, as I mentioned, in Estonia's case, we've actually, in a way, managed to solve the issue, because we don't have the immigration out from Estonia so far, not so much anymore. We have been very beneficial because we are next to Finland. So in our cases, many people who went to work for Finland, they didn't actually settle down there. Like husbands went to work, well, they kept their families in Estonia, whereas Latvians, Lithuanians went to Ireland, UK, and then you're so much farther away, you're taking your family together with you. But all in all, I would still say that if you start raising the prosperity of the candidate countries, of the new member states, then eventually people will start coming back home. And it's not a bad thing if people move away. Like, oh.
Thank you very much. Just a quick response and we can
quick response. EU in educational system, rather at the university, not so much in a primary school, high school, like 1 hour per semester, not too much. But we do have a great European studies program at universities, right? The second one, transfer of expertise to candidate countries. It's mainly the CSOs based on the previous cooperation, not the government. I mean, like the government doesn't have any kind of a specific strategy. We declare politically support, but there's no, like capacity building training, whatever technical assistant at all. Immigration in case of the Slovakia, it's rather, like, as you said, cross-border cooperation. People are still living in Slovakia, working in Austria, working in Hungary, or vice versa. They move over there because it's cheaper to buy the house, and then they continue to work in Slovakia. Regional cooperation, that's, like our dream to be somewhere involved. Yeah, we need some bigger group. So V4 is important, but right now we are not very welcomed over there. And but then we create the Slavko formats or the regional cooperation with Slovak-Austria cooperation, Slovak-Czech cooperation, Slovak-Hungarian, like inter-regional cooperation, which is like different one, and it's pretty much connected with the financial support dedicated to that. But I believe that what we learned from the regional cooperation is that it's very important also to discuss the regional perspective before we will get to the meeting in the council, so we can at least know where we stand, also our neighbors, when we somehow persuade the interest, the regional interest, or the regional position. So this is like a meso level in the decision making, and important for Slovakia at all.
Boštjan?
Thank you very much. So Europeanization of education in Slovenia really strong on the elementary and secondary level and really weak at the university level. We started the program in European affairs at the university in 2004, and after 2009, almost there are no students that are interested in the program. So we are now trying to catch people from the Western Balkans and from Eastern Europe and from Southern America to have this program still alive. If not, we are going to cancel it because we think that we know everything about the European Union in the country. European affairs are part from 2012 of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Before we had a horizontal, it was a separate ministry regarding for the cohesion funds and for the European affairs. But because of the austerity measures in 2012, we merged together, and from that point forward, we are having in the foreign affairs, and it's perceived also like this. European affairs towards the candidate countries, we are having both government and civil society activities, so they're both. Regarding the coalition at the European level, depends from the government. The center-right is having always a coalition at the European level with Budapest and Poland. The center-left is always having with Germany and France. The Eurozone evaluation in Slovenia, all in all, I think that the situation in the crisis would be even worse than it was. Slovenia lost 10 years regarding the economic development because of the economic crisis 2008. And because of euro, I think that we stabilized our economy. Without the euro, I think that we would be a sort of basket case. The case of Croatia, they lost 10% of population. We did not lose the population. However, we are learning from you. We are also importing people from Philippines and everything else. And the last thing regarding the V4, we never liked really the V4. That is why we invented the C5, so the Central European 5, so being Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, which is important for the case of Slovenia and Slovenia. So this is important format for us from our perspective.
Thank you, Boštjan. Eva?
Some words about Visegrad for cooperation. I think that that would be very important because these countries, Poland, Slovakia, Czechia, and Hungary, has very similar cultural tradition, historical, strategic approach, and so on, and a very very strong orientation to the Austrian, German-Austrian economy. So any cooperation and any harmonization, their interest within the European Union would be very important. And there's another question that at present this cooperation is not without conflict because of the different approach to the Russian invasion against Ukraine, where Hungary has another opinion, unfortunately. About the euro, Hungary is the only country without euro at the table. I remember 20 years ago, our research institute and also other research institutes wrote tremendous papers, reports, and analyses, and so on, how to introduce the euro, but concrete steps. What to do, how to do, and so on, from theoretical point of view, somewhere else on theory, and so on. But with a very high budget deficit in 2006, in the election year, at that time that was a left liberal government, not this government. Actually, it gone with the wind. The next years were spent with the fiscal consolidation. Then the global crisis came, and this hope was away. Social dialogue, very shortly. These governments, what we have, these governments do not like social dialogue. These governments do not like trade unions. These governments do not like any involvement of social partners, mainly employees, representatives, because this government thinks that only the employers who is creating the money, who is creating profits, and who is creating economic growth, and so on. However, I am modestly optimistic, because if there is a strong pressure from the side of the European Union, and not only pressure, but also financial resources. Financial resources already have a word, much more than any other pressure. And I think that slowly this pressure, combined with financial means, will contribute to a certain improving the situation of this bipartite or tripartite social dialogue.
Thank you very much. And just a last sentence. We have a consensus we haven't discussed, but we do hope that we can organize the same panel in 30 years in the EU, 40 years in the EU, and we can have the same consultation with you also in the future. So thank you, and sorry for being delayed. Thank you very much.